I'm Abigail Young, 32 years old, and last month my world flipped at a family dinner celebrating my father's retirement. My sister stood pointed at me, her voice dripping venom. "You're an uneducated failure who probably sells drugs to make money," she sneered. My parents didn't flinch. "Get out and don't come back." They shouted, their voices booming across the table. The room froze. Her smirk burned into me. My mother's eyes ice cold, my father's fist slamming the wood so hard the plates rattled. The silence that followed was deafening, every guest staring, waiting for me to crumble. I didn't. I gave them a calm, cold smile, said okay, and walked out my heels, clicking sharply on their hardwood floor, each step echoing my resolve. Before I tell you how their betrayal pushed me to that point, I want to know where you're hearing this story. They had no idea I'd been living a double life, one they'd never even imagined. For years, I played the part they expected, all while quietly pulling the strings that kept their world intact. Then, in a single week, everything changed. Papers were signed, numbers shifted. A letter went out that made their hands shake. And that was just the beginning. The shock on their faces when that letter landed, I can still picture their jaws dropping, their eyes wide with disbelief. I didn't stop there. I cut off every dime I'd quietly funneled their way: phone plans, streaming accounts, even their insurance they thought was family support. Then I packed my life, moved to a beachfront house in Fort Lauderdale, and left their judgment behind for good. That moment, walking away from their scorn, was when I rewrote my future. But how did years of hidden success and quiet support lead to that explosive night? Stick around, you won't believe what came before the storm. The storm that erupted at that family dinner had roots stretching back to my childhood in Fort Worth, Texas, where I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood surrounded by the hum of routine Sunday church backyard barbecues, and my parents' unwavering belief that a college degree was the only path to success. My father, Scott Young, a civil engineer who spent 30 years designing bridges, would sit at the head of our dinner table, his voice steady and commanding. "A degree means stability, benefits, a real career," he'd say, cutting into his steak. My mother, Crystal Young, who handled payroll for a local company, would nod, her smile gentle but firm. "It's what sets you apart," she'd add, passing the mashed potatoes. My younger sister, Anna Young, drank it all in, acing her classes, joining debate club, and mapping out her college applications by 16, aiming for a safe accounting job. Me, I was the oddball, chasing ideas that didn't fit their blueprint. At 14, I started making bracelets from beads and wire, selling them online for $10 each. I'd spend hours after school in my room stringing designs under a dim desk lamp, uploading grainy photos to early internet forums with my cheap digital camera. My first month brought in $200 small, but it lit a spark in me. I'd run to the kitchen waving the cash, expecting a reaction. Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. "That's cute, Abigail, but focus on school or you'll regret it," he said, his tone flat. Mom patted my arm, her voice soft. "It's a nice hobby, honey, but it won't pay the bills." Anna, sitting across the table with her algebra textbook, rolled her eyes. "Why waste time on that when you could study for SATs?" she muttered, as if my hustle was a childish game. By 15, I'd saved enough to buy a used laptop and taught myself basic coding from library books. I started fixing apps for neighbors, simple stuff like weather trackers or calendar tools, charging $20 an hour. The local tech shop charged 3 times that, so my phone kept buzzing with clients. One neighbor, a retired teacher, paid me $500 to rebuild her book club scheduling app. I stayed up until 2 a.m. debugging it, my fingers cramped from typing. When I showed my parents the money, proud of my work, Dad scoffed. "Side hustles don't build a future. Get serious." Mom chimed in, Anna's already planning her college tours. "You should think about yours." Their words cut deeper each time, like I was failing them by chasing what I loved. Anna smirked, her honor roll certificates pinned proudly on the fridge, a silent jab at my pointless projects. Family dinners became battlegrounds. Anna would gush about her latest A-plus essay or her internship at a local firm, and my parents would beam, piling her plate with extra servings. When I mentioned selling 30 bracelets in a week, or fixing an app for a cafe down the street, they'd pivot talking about the weather or needing milk. That fire ignited in me during those late-night coding sessions, pushed me to take the leap at 18, enrolling in community college to appease my parents. They saw it as the smart move, a bridge to a stable career like Anna's. I attended classes in basic business and intro coding, sitting in crowded lecture halls, but the material felt stale textbook theories from instructors who'd never launched a product. The rigid schedule clashed with my need to create, and after one semester I realized it was holding me back. I gathered my courage and told my parents I was dropping out to pursue coding full-time. Dad's face reddened, his voice booming. "You're throwing your life away." Mom wiped her eyes, pleading, "We raised you better. What will people think?" Anna, visiting from her university, crossed her arms. I knew she'd quit. Their reaction crushed me, but I packed my bags with the $2,000 I'd saved from those teen gigs and left. I rented a tiny studio apartment on the outskirts of Fort Worth, the sort with creaky floors and neighbors who argued at all hours. Rent ate $500 a month, leaving little for anything else. I survived on ramen packets and canned soup-skipping meals when cash ran low, and wore the same thrift store jeans for weeks. Mornings kicked off at 5 a.m. with black coffee from a cheap maker, then I'd dive into self-taught coding on my outdated laptop. I scoured online forums like Stack Overflow and Codecademy for free tutorials, practicing by building basic scripts, a calculator tool, a to-do list app. No mentor guided me. It was trial and error hours debugging lines that wouldn't run. My first major project was an app connecting local freelancers with clients, something I thought could fill a gap in Fort Worth's growing gig economy. I spent weeks designing the interface, learning UI basics on the fly, and coding the backend in Python. Launch day arrived and I promoted it on local Facebook groups. Initial signups came in, but the app crashed under even light traffic server errors I hadn't foreseen. Users flooded my inbox with complaints, lost my profile data, can't log in. I issued refunds, burning through my savings, $5,000 gone in a month. The failure hit hard. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, questioning if Dad was right. To keep the lights on, I turned to freelance coding jobs, advertising on Craigslist and Upwork for $30 an hour. It was inconsistent. Some weeks I'd land 3 clients making $800, others barely $300. One job was for a bakery owner wanting an online ordering system. I worked 2 weeks straight integrating payment gateways and testing cart functionality, but the client demanded endless changes, extending the deadline and straining my patience. Another gig came from a mechanic shop needing a customer database for appointments. I learned SQL overnight, building queries to track bookings, but a data loss bug almost lost me the contract. I fixed it at 3 a.m., sweating through the night. My second venture was a budgeting app for students inspired by my own tight finances. I researched by surveying forum users, identifying needs like expense tracking and alerts. The prototype looked promising with a clean dashboard and goal-setting features. I launched it on app stores with a small ad budget from freelance earnings. Downloads trickled in, but feedback revealed usability flaws, confusing navigation, slow load times. Revenue peaked at $200 the first month, not enough for rent. Competition from established apps like Mint buried mine. I iterated, adding notifications and charts, but it was too late. The app fizzled. Teaching me market research meant more than surveys. It required early testing and adaptation. The third attempt was an inventory tracker for small stores, building on lessons from the previous flops. I incorporated user feedback from the start, beta testing with a few freelance clients who gave thumbs up. Launch went smoother with decent downloads, but a sync bug caused inventory data to vanish for users. Complaints poured in, lost my stock list. I patched it over weeks, but trust eroded and revenue dropped to zero after $400 initial. That one stung the most. I'd invested hope as much as time. Lying awake in my dim apartment, I replayed the failures, each one a harsh teacher. Debug, thoroughly research markets, deeply anticipate user pain points. Throughout family calls, added salt to the wounds. Mom would ring asking if I was eating well, then slip in, "College is still an option, dear." Dad emailed job postings requiring degrees, noting, "This could be a stable start." Anna texted photos of her campus parties captioned, "Real success looks like this." I hid the struggles, replying, "Things are fine," while scraping by on freelance scraps. Each setback built my resilience. No classroom could teach that. The isolation fueled determination, pushing me to code better, think smarter. One evening, after a grueling freelance fix, an email popped in from a small business owner interested in a custom inventory app. It promised steady work, a potential turning point. But that same day, Dad called, his tone sharp. "When are you going back to school? This phase has gone on long enough." His words lit a fuse. I hung up, opened my laptop, and vowed to make this opportunity my breakthrough, no matter the cost. Dad's call questioning my phase only hardened my resolve, and I threw myself into that client email, turning it into the foundation for something bigger. The business owner, a local eco-enthusiast running a recycling center, needed a custom app to track inventory and connect with suppliers. I took the job for $400, but I saw opportunity. Over the next 2 weeks, I built the prototype, incorporating features like real-time updates and user dashboards. The client loved it, paying on time and referring me to 2 more businesses. Those gigs brought in $800, enough to cover rent and buy a better laptop. I used the momentum to pivot from freelance fixes to my own project, drawing on the lessons from my earlier flops. I conceived EcoLink as a platform linking users to green services, solar installers, recycling hubs, energy auditors in Fort Worth's emerging eco scene. Starting with a minimum viable product, I coded a basic directory with search filters using Python for the backend and JavaScript for the front end. I hosted it on a low-cost server, testing every feature to avoid the crashes that sank my previous apps. Launch was low-key posts on local Facebook groups and environmental forums. Downloads started slow, 10 the first week, 20 the next, but users liked the simplicity. I iterated quickly, adding ratings and maps based on feedback from those early adopters. The breakthrough hit when a popular environmental blogger discovered it through a forum thread. She reviewed EcoLink on her site, calling it a must-have for sustainable living in Texas. Her post exploded in eco communities, driving thousands of downloads overnight. Revenue surged from premium listings, businesses paying to be featured hitting $10,000 in the first month. I couldn't believe it. For the first time, my bank account had a buffer. I celebrated alone with a takeout pizza, but the high was short-lived. I knew scaling was next. With the cash flow, I hired my first contractor, a fellow coder from an online forum, to help with back-end upgrades. We expanded EcoLink to include user profiles and recommendation algorithms, making it more than a directory, a community hub. Downloads climbed to 10,000, and revenue doubled the next month. I incorporated the company, renting a small office space in a co-working building downtown Fort Worth. By year 2, I had 5 full-time employees, 2 developers, a marketer, and support staff. We added partnerships with local green businesses, taking a commission on referrals. The app went statewide, connecting users in Dallas and Austin. As growth accelerated, challenges piled up. A server overload during a viral campaign forced me to work 48 hours straight, migrating to a cloud service while answering user emails. We lost some partnerships when a competitor undercut our rates, so I drove to meetings personally, negotiating better terms and strengthening ties. Cash flow issues hit when expansion outpaced income. I went without salary for 2 months, negotiating extended payments with vendors. These hurdles taught me financial discipline. No college course could match that hands-on grind. By year 3, EcoLink had 45 employees with offices in a converted warehouse. We hit 1 million downloads and revenue crossed the seven-figure mark. I became the executive, turning down acquisition offers from bigger tech firms. To keep control, I wanted to steer the vision toward national expansion. Features like AI-driven sustainability tips and integration with smart home devices kept users engaged. A profile in a business magazine highlighted our impact, bringing investor interest, but I stayed independent. Through it all, I kept my success hidden from my family. They'd ask about my job, and I'd say, "Business is okay," downplaying the scale to avoid their skepticism. Calls home were brief. Mom would update me on Anna's promotions, Dad on his projects, but they never asked details about mine. It hurt, but I told myself it was better than their judgment. One evening after closing a major partnership, I overheard Mom on the phone with a neighbor. "Abigail's doing some internet thing, lucky for her, but it's not a real career." Her words reignited the old pain, making me question if anything would change their view. Mom's overheard comment about my internet thing being luck stung like a fresh cut, but it also ignited a quiet determination to help them in ways they couldn't ignore, even if anonymously. As EcoLink grew, generating steady revenue, I started funneling money back to my family without them knowing. It began with Mom's cancer diagnosis in 2017, right as the app hit its first major milestone. Her breast cancer treatments racked up bills not covered by insurance, $80,000 for chemo and surgery. I set up an anonymous payment through a third-party service, making it look like an insurance adjustment. Mom called me one day relieved. The hospital said it's covered, some mix-up fixed itself. I mumbled congratulations, biting my tongue to keep the secret. Next came Anna's wedding in 2019. She and her fiancé Brian were short on funds for the venue, and honeymoon totaling $60,000. I wired the money via a family friend account, disguising it as a gift from a distant relative. Anna texted me photos of the dress, gushing about how everything fell into place. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji, but inside it twisted my contribution, erased, credited to luck or family magic. Then in 2021, Dad's house repairs after a storm damaged the roof and foundation, costing $30,000. I paid the contractor directly, posing as a grant from a local program. Dad bragged to neighbors about good insurance, never suspecting the source. I used separate bank accounts for these transfers, routing them through apps like PayPal and Venmo to stay hidden. Each time I'd check the statement, seeing the money vanish into their lives. Mom's recovery, Anna's happy day, Dad's fixed home. It felt good at first, a way to repay their raising me, but the secrecy weighed heavy. Why hide? Because their dismissal of my work made me fear they'd reject the help if they knew it came from my lucky path. The inner conflict grew. I craved their approval, yet dreaded their judgment. The cracks showed in small ways. During a rare family call, Mom mentioned Anna's new car bought with savings from her steady job. I knew I'd covered the down payment, but said nothing. Dad talked about his retirement fund, holding strong. Unaware, I'd topped it up. Anna posted on social media about her promotion, captioning, "Hard work pays off thanks to family support." That one stung her. Family support was my silent checks, but she paraded it as her own merit. I scrolled through their profiles, noticing how family photos from holidays never included me anymore, or if they did, the captions skipped my name. One evening in 2022, after a long day at the office, I overheard Anna on a video call with her friends while visiting home for a weekend. Abigail got lucky with some app thing, she's still uneducated though." She laughed. Her words echoed, confirming what I'd feared. They saw my success as a fluke, not skill. It hurt more than the failures. I'd built a company from nothing, yet to them I was the dropout sister. The pain fueled a cycle. I helped more to prove my worth, but the secrecy deepened the divide. By 2023, the total support hit $170,000, all anonymous. Mom's follow-up scans, Anna's home down payment extension, Dad's car repair after a fender bender, I handled it all. Each transfer was a mix of love and resentment, a silent bid for recognition that never came. Their casual mentions, "things worked out," erased my role, crediting family effort or fate. On social media, Anna's posts about our family's resilience made my stomach twist. Resilience built on my money, but they claimed it as their own. The breaking point came when I saw Anna's post after her promotion party. Jia Jin tu lo het, thanks to everyone's hard work. The photo showed them toasting, no mention of me. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the screen, the pain turning to resolve. Their erasure wasn't just oversight, it was denial. I decided the retirement dinner for Dad would be the moment to reveal everything, to force them to see me. The secrecy had to end, even if it meant confronting the rift head-on. That post from Anna crediting family effort for everything I'd silently funded was the final push. I couldn't keep hiding my truth. My father's retirement dinner in 2024 was my chance to lay it all bare, not to boast, but to force them to see me as more than the dropout they dismissed. I decided to present a gift, a fully funded retirement account, $100,000 set up through my company's financial advisor. It wasn't just money, it was proof of my success, a concrete way to show I'd built something real. But more than that, I wanted them to know about the years of support I'd given: the $80,000 for Mom's cancer treatments, the $60,000 for Anna's wedding and car, the $30,000 for Dad's house repairs. This wasn't about shaming them. It was about claiming my place in the family. I spent weeks preparing a speech, something I'd never done before. Sitting at my desk in Fort Worth, I wrote and rewrote, tracing my journey from those teenage bracelet sales to coding apps in my cramped apartment, from failures to EcoLink's seven-figure revenue. I kept it simple, no jargon, just the truth. How I'd worked 18-hour days, taught myself Python, survived on ramen, and built a company that employed 45 people. The speech wasn't long, maybe 5 minutes, but every word carried weight. I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror, timing myself, adjusting my tone to stay calm but firm. I did this for me, but also for us, I'd say, imagining their faces. I've been supporting you not out of pity, but love. My hands shook as I rehearsed, picturing Dad's skeptical frown, Mom's hesitant nod, Anna's eye roll. The documents were my backup, hard evidence they couldn't dismiss. I gathered bank statements, receipts, and transfer confirmations from the anonymous accounts I'd used. One folder held the hospital payment records for Mom's chemo, showing $80,000 cleared in 2017. Another had the wedding venue and honeymoon invoices for Anna, $60,000 wired in 2019. A third showed the contractor payments for Dad's roof and foundation, $30,000 in 2021. I organized them in a sleek binder, each page tabbed and dated, ready to hand over if they questioned me. Checking the papers felt like arming myself for battle. I wasn't just walking into a dinner, I was walking into a reckoning. The night before the dinner, I barely slept. I stood in my apartment, pacing, rereading the speech on my laptop. Doubt crept in. Would they even listen? Dad's voice echoed in my head. Focus on school, or you'll regret it. Anna's smug, Abigail got lucky, stung anew. What if they laughed? What if they turned it against me? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the binder, the speech, the gift. This was my last try to be accepted as an equal, to bridge that canyon between us. I ironed my dress, a simple navy one I'd worn to client meetings, and packed the binder and gift paperwork in my purse. My heart raced as I visualized the moment, setting the binder on the table, speaking my truth, watching their faces shift from doubt to realization. The morning of the dinner, I drove to a coffee shop to clear my head. Sitting with a latte, I ran through the speech one last time, whispering the lines under my breath. A barista noticed, smiling. "Big presentation today?" she asked. I nodded, not explaining it felt too personal. Back home, I checked the binder again, ensuring every receipt was in place. The retirement account paperwork was crisp, signed by the advisor, a tangible symbol of my success. I told myself this wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving me right. But deep down, I wanted their respect, maybe even their pride. As the afternoon sun dipped, I got ready, my hands steadying as I applied mascara. I looked in the mirror, no longer the unsure teen hiding coding books. I was a woman who'd built a tech empire, who'd carried her family without credit. The speech, the gift, the documents, they were my stand. Driving to my parents' house, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my pulse thundered. The familiar street appeared lined with the same oak trees from my childhood. Their house came into view, lights warm through the windows, cars already parked, Anna and her husband, neighbors, family, friends. I pulled into the driveway, took a deep breath, and grabbed my purse. This dinner would either change everything or break it apart forever. Stepping through my parents' front door, the familiar smell of pot roast hit me, but the warmth of childhood memories was gone. The dining room buzzed with chatter. Neighbors, family, friends, Anna and her husband, Brian Edwards, all gathered around the table set with Mom's good china. Dad sat at the head, smiling at compliments about his retirement, Mom bustling with serving dishes. Anna, in a crisp blazer, recounted her latest promotion, basking in their nods. I took my seat, the binder and gift envelope heavy in my purse, my pulse still racing from the drive. No one asked about my life, not a single question about my work. The conversation danced around local gossip, Brian's new car, Anna's office achievements. I waited, picking at my plate, the speech I'd practiced burning in my mind. After dessert, as coffee cups clinked, I saw my opening. I stood, hands steady despite my racing heart. Dad, Mom, Anna, everyone, I have something to share, I said, voice clear. All eyes turned, some curious, some indifferent. I started my speech, keeping it tight. I built a tech company, EcoLink, from nothing. It's valued at millions, and I'm earning a 7-figure salary. No degree, just hard work, 18-hour days, years of learning code, surviving failures. I paused, scanning their faces. Dad's brow furrowed. Mom blinked. Anna leaned back, arms crossed. And I've been supporting this family? I continued, pulling out the binder. $80,000 for Mom's cancer treatments in 2017, $60,000 for Anna's wedding and car in 2019, $30,000 for Dad's house repairs in 2021. I paid it all quietly, because I love you. The room went still, forks frozen midair. I opened the binder, sliding it toward Dad, receipts and bank transfers neatly tabbed. This is the proof, I said, placing the retirement account envelope beside it. And this is for you, Dad, a fully funded account, $100,000. I expected shock, maybe gratitude. Instead, Anna stood, her face twisted. You're an uneducated failure, she spat. Stop lying. You probably sell drugs to make that money. Her words sliced through the silence, guests gasping. Dad didn't look at the binder. He grabbed it, tearing pages in half, his voice booming. We're ashamed to call you our daughter. You think throwing money around makes you better than us? Mom joined in, her tone sharp. We never asked for your charity. Abigail? I stood frozen, the binder's ripped pages fluttering to the floor. Brian smirked, leaning back. Neighbors stared, some whispering. Anna pointed at the door. Get out and don't come back. Dad echoed, red-faced. Out now. Mom's eyes were cold. No trace of defense. The weight of their words hit like a tidal wave, not just rejection, but erasure of everything I'd done. I didn't argue or plead. Something snapped inside, a clarity cutting through the hurt. I gave them a cold, calculated smile, one I'd never used before. I understand perfectly now, I said, my voice steady, almost icy. I grabbed my purse, the torn binder, the untouched envelope, and walked out. My heels clicked on the hardwood, each step a release. The door slammed behind me, their shouts fading. Outside, the night air was cool, but my blood burned. I slid into my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, not from sadness, but from a new resolve. They hadn't just dismissed my success, they'd spat on it, torn it apart, called me a criminal. The love I'd poured into those payments, the years of secrecy to spare their pride, meant nothing. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to my lawyer's number, a contact I'd never thought I'd need for family. As I drove to the hotel streetlights blurring past, I dialed. "I need you to look into some property records," I said, voice calm but firm. "The house my parents rent, I want to buy it fast." He asked why. I didn't explain the dinner, the torn papers, the shame they'd thrown at me. I just said, "It's time to set things right." Revenge wasn't a choice anymore. It was a necessity. Dialing my lawyer on that drive home from the dinner with their shouts still ringing in my ears sealed the plan. I wasn't turning back. "Look into the rental property my parents live in," I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. He pulled records overnight confirming the house was for sale by the owner, a standard Texas listing at market value. I wired the funds from my company account the next day, closing the deal in cash for speed. No loans, no delays. 1 week after the dinner, the title was mine. I didn't confront them directly. I sent a legal notice through the lawyer's office on company letterhead with Ecolink's logo bold at the top. It detailed the new ownership doubled the rent to match current Fort Worth rates, up from $1,500 to $3,000 monthly, and demanded immediate payment for back utilities I'd covered anonymously over the years, totaling $20,000. The notice gave them 30 days to pay or vacate, all within Texas tenant laws. The shockwave hit fast. Mom called the next day, her voice trembling. "What's this letter?" "The rent's doubled. How can we afford that?" I kept it professional. "It's business. The property's under new management." She pressed, but I hung up. Anna texted furiously, "This is low even for you." I didn't reply. Dad emailed accusing me of playing games with family. I forwarded it to the lawyer without a word. To expose the scale, I posted on LinkedIn about toxic family dynamics, anonymous but obvious to anyone who knew us. When success is dismissed as luck and support is erased, boundaries become essential. I wrote linking to an article on entrepreneur mental health. It got hundreds of likes with comments from colleagues sharing similar stories. The post didn't name them, but the timing spoke volumes. I cut off all ongoing support that same week. Their phone plans, billed to my credit card under Family Share, got canceled. Texts from Anna complaining about lost service went unanswered. The streaming accounts I'd set up for their TV, Netflix, Hulu expired without renewal. Even the insurance riders I'd added to my policy for Mom's follow-ups were dropped with a notice sent via email. It was clean, legal, and final. No more invisible safety net. The total I'd spent over the years, $170,000, ended there. Their reactions poured in through voicemails I deleted unheard, but I stood firm. This wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was reclaiming my power after years of their denial. With the notice sent, I sent a final letter, handwritten, to cut ties completely. "I've loved and supported this family, but your rejection at the dinner showed me my place." I wrote, "The money stops. The contact stops. I wish you well, but from afar." I mailed it, certified no return address. Then I packed my essentials, laptop, clothes, a few books, and arranged for movers to handle the rest. Fort Lauderdale called, a beachfront house I'd eyed for months, bought for $1,500,000 with Ecolink profits. The closing was quick, and I drove down the Texas skyline, fading in my rearview. In Fort Lauderdale, the salt air hit me as I unlocked the door to my new home, a 2-story modern build with ocean views. I converted the spare room into an office, setting up dual monitors for remote Ecolink work. The first days were raw therapy sessions with Dr. Andrea Torres, a local specialist in family trauma, helped unpack the dinner's fallout. "Their words reflect their insecurities, not your worth," she said in our virtual calls. I journaled the patterns, Dad's lectures, Mom's passive nods, Anna's taunts, all rooted in their fear of my unconventional path. Sessions shifted from pain to processing, recognizing how their undervaluing had driven my secrecy. Routine became my anchor. Mornings started with beach walks, waves lapping at my feet, clearing my head before team meetings. I adopted a cat, Misty, a gray rescue with green eyes, who curled up on my lap during calls. Her purring was a simple comfort, no strings attached. I joined a local networking group for women entrepreneurs, meeting Brianne Collins, who ran a nearby coffee shop. "You're inspiring," she said over our first lunch, sharing her own startup story. Our weekly meetups, dinners at seaside spots talking business and life, built a chosen family free from judgment. Some relatives reached out after the LinkedIn post went viral in our circles. An aunt called apologizing for staying silent. We saw what they did, it wasn't right. I forgave selective only those genuine like her who acknowledged the hurt. Others, like a cousin echoing dad's views, got blocked. The boundaries felt right, even if painful. I don't regret them, but healing from family rejection takes time. Therapy sessions remind me it's a process, not a switch. As the dust settled, I reflected on the journey. Their betrayal at the dinner wasn't the end, it was the start of my real freedom. Self-respect matters more than toxic relationships. If your family dismisses your efforts or credits your support to luck, set boundaries early. Recognize the signs, erased contributions, constant comparison, rejection of your path. Live your passion, build a chosen family that values you. That's the value. Don't wait for approval that may never come.
Or maybe I just couldn't see straight through the fog of tears. A nurse finally came out, slowly pulling off her gloves. She didn't have to say anything. I knew. He was gone. Ethan. My husband. My best friend. One minute he was on his way home from work, the next his heart just gave out behind the wheel. A silent attack. Quick. Cruel. They told me he didn't even feel pain. But I did. I sat alone in a cold hallway chair, shaking, clutching the strap of my purse like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My hands dialed automatically. I needed someone. Anyone. I called my mom. "Mom, it's Ethan." I choked out. "He's gone. He's gone. Can you please come? I can't do this alone." There was a clatter of dishes in the background. Laughter. Music. Then her voice. "Oh, honey, we're at your sister's birthday dinner right now. Can it wait until tomorrow? Everyone's here, and we just brought out the cake." I didn't respond. Couldn't. She said, "Try to get some sleep, all right? We'll check in soon." She hung up. They never showed. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even at the funeral home. I signed papers. Chose the casket. Explained death to our 8-year-old daughter, Claire. All on my own. 3 days later, they came. No hugs. No flowers. Just polite nods and pitiful faces. Then Mom sat on the couch and said, "So, did he leave you everything? I mean, legally speaking, inheritance can get tricky, especially with family involved." Dad added, "You know we helped with that down payment back then. It's only fair we get our share now that things are being sorted." Claire was standing by the doorway, silent as a ghost. She disappeared for a moment, then came back holding a white envelope with shaky hands. "Here," she said, stepping toward them. "That's why you came, right?" They froze. Mom took the envelope slowly, her fingers trembling. Inside was a letter, one I had prepared, one that explained everything they needed to know about the will, the trust, the reality of what Ethan left behind. But Claire didn't wait for their reaction. She walked back toward me, took my hand, and said, "Can we go home now? My name is Anna Graves. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because losing the love of your life is a kind of death. But being forgotten by your own family? That's the part that doesn't stop hurting. I used to believe that if I did everything right, they'd see me. That if I got the good grades, stayed quiet, didn't cause problems, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at her. My sister Lily. The golden girl. The one who got the new dresses, the extra dessert, the louder cheers at graduation. Even when she barely passed. She had a laugh that made people turn their heads. I had a quiet voice they forgot in the car. When I met Ethan in college, I finally felt seen, not just looked at, but seen. He wasn't flashy. Not a six-figure guy or some brilliant entrepreneur. He worked as a paramedic. Came home smelling like hospitals and kindness. He listened when I spoke. He held space when I cried. But to my parents, he was a waste of potential. He's just average, Anna. Don't you want something more? I mean, what can a man like that really give you? They refused to come to our wedding. Said it was too sudden. We eloped anyway, in a small garden, just the two of us and Claire growing in my belly. He kissed my forehead and promised me that no matter who showed up, he would never leave my side. A month later, my parents threw Lily a massive engagement party, complete with ice sculptures, monogrammed napkins, and a fireworks display. They posted it all on Facebook. Never once messaged me to ask how married life was going. When Claire was born, I sent them photos. Weeks passed, no reply. Eventually, they came to visit. My mom held Claire like she was made of glass, smiled politely, and said, "She's sweet. Looks more like Ethan than you, though." They never called on birthdays. Never asked what she liked. When Lily's twins were born, my parents had a nursery built in their home. Claire noticed, of course. Kids always do. "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa want to play with me?" she once asked. I told her, "They're just busy, baby." But I knew the truth. We didn't fit their picture. We weren't loud or polished or impressive. We were just quietly happy. And in my family, that wasn't enough. So Ethan and I built something without them. Sunday pancakes, backyard sprinklers, grocery store dance parties. We didn't have much, but it was full of love. Real love. And when he died, the only arms that held me were Claire's. Not my mother's. Not my father's. They were too busy icing a cake and clapping for Lily to hear my heart break. When they finally showed up, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for Claire. It was for what they thought they deserved. Even after death, I still came second. Grief doesn't move in a straight line. It stumbles. Stops. Swallows you whole. For the first week after Ethan died, I moved like a shadow. I planned the funeral alone. Choosing the casket, the flowers, the song he once said he wanted played, if anything ever happened. Claire watched me carefully. She didn't cry much at first, just followed me from room to room, holding my hand like she was the one keeping me upright. My parents didn't send flowers, didn't offer to help. Lily posted a black and white selfie with a caption, "R.I.P. to my sister's husband. Life is short. Love your people, broken heart." She spelled his name wrong. The day of the funeral, my parents arrived 10 minutes late. They sat in the back. Left immediately after. Didn't say a word to Claire. That night, the silence in our house felt different. Not just empty, but vacant. I was pouring tea 2 days later when my mom called. Her voice was soft. Gentle even. "Hi, sweetie. How are you holding up?" I almost cried hearing that tone from her. Almost. Until she added, "We were wondering if maybe we could stop by. Just to talk." They came the next morning, dressed like they were meeting a banker. My dad even wore a tie. We sat in the living room, where Ethan's slippers still sat near the fireplace. "We were just thinking," my mom started. "Ethan had a lot going on. A house, some savings, right? We know he wasn't rich, but..." She trailed off, looked at my father. Dad cleared his throat. "It's just that, technically, we are family. And with things like this, it's always good to be transparent. About what's left. About how it might be divided." My heart didn't break. It hardened. They didn't come to check on us. They didn't ask how Claire was sleeping. They didn't even say they missed him. They came for money. "I'm sorry," I said, swallowing everything I wanted to scream. "Are you asking if Ethan left you something?" Mom gave a tight smile. "Well, I mean, we helped with things over the years. The down payment, remember? And it's only fair." Claire was in the hallway, frozen, holding her sketchbook. They didn't see her, but I did. That night, she climbed into bed with me and whispered, "They were talking about Daddy's money." I nodded, gently stroking her hair. What did they mean by split fairly? I swallowed hard. Nothing that matters to us, baby. But in my heart, something shifted. They hadn't lost a son-in-law. They didn't mourn him. They didn't even really know him. They just saw his death as an open door. They came with fake sympathy, but what they really brought was a calculator. And that's when I knew. They didn't lose a person. They saw a payday. I never believed in revenge, not the loud kind. The kind that screams and breaks and burns things down. But silence? Silence is a different kind of fire. The morning after their visit, I called Ethan's lawyer, Mr. O, a quiet man with kind eyes who once said, "Ethan may not be rich in money, but he's rich in preparation." He was right. Ethan had left everything in order. A living trust, a detailed will, Claire's college fund, life insurance, emergency documents. He'd protected us, even in death. Mr. Rowe met me in his office with a folder already labeled, Anna Graves and Claire, personal and confidential. We went through everything, page by page. Ethan had left every cent to Claire, with me as the sole trustee. Nothing to my parents. Nothing to Lily. No loopholes. No drama. And now, I was making sure it stayed that way. "I want to add an addendum," I said. "A clause that states that no one, not even blood relatives, can contest any part of this estate." He nodded. "It's your right. And it's smart." I added more. Updated beneficiaries. Closed every financial window they might crawl through. Then I went home and started building my file. I created a folder. A real one, physical, thick and locked. Inside, a copy of the will. Statements from the trust. A letter addressed to whom it may concern, detailing the harassment. Screenshots of my parents' messages. And one handwritten note from Ethan I'd been saving. "Whatever happens, protect Claire first. She's our legacy." I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. That night, as I sat at the kitchen table sorting papers, Claire came into the room. She was holding her stuffed bear and rubbing her eyes. "What are you doing, Mommy?" "Just organizing things," I said softly. She looked at the papers. Then at me. "They're coming for what's not theirs, huh?" I paused. She wasn't a baby anymore. She was watching, learning. I closed the folder, walked over, and knelt in front of her. "Yes," I said, "but they'll leave with what they deserve." She nodded once, like she understood more than an 8-year-old should. I pulled her close, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "And you, my love, you'll get everything your daddy wanted for you." They rang the doorbell, like guests, like people with a right to knock. My parents stood outside with a Tupperware container of lemon cake and the kind of smiles people wear at church funerals. Polished. Practiced. Empty. "Hi, sweetie," my mom said. "We just wanted to check in. See how you're coping." I let them in, not out of kindness, but because I wanted them to see what they'd never really looked at. The home Ethan built with his hands. The framed crayon drawings Claire made for Father's Day. The pictures on the mantel, of laughter, not luxury. They sat stiffly in the living room, commenting on the new rug, the scented candles. Then Dad cleared his throat. "I know this is a difficult time," he began. "And we want to be respectful, but we also want to make sure things are handled fairly. Ethan was part of our family, too." Mom nodded quickly. "And I just can't help but wonder what he would have wanted. Surely he'd want to honor all the people in his life." That was when Claire entered the room. Quiet. Calm. Holding a sealed white envelope with both hands. She walked straight to them. "This is for you," she said. "That's why you came, right?" They blinked, stunned. Mom took the envelope with shaking fingers. Opened it slowly. Inside, a certified copy of Ethan's will, stamped and signed. Every asset legally bound to me and Claire. A trust document with Claire's name etched in bold, undeniable letters. And one photo. It was a picture of me at 5 years old, sitting on my childhood bed, arms crossed, tears in my eyes. My mother sitting beside me, looking at her phone. Attached was a small sticky note. "This is the last time you ever held me. Don't pretend to care now." The air left the room. Mom's lips parted, but no sound came out. Dad looked pale, like he'd seen a ghost. Claire stood tall, voice steady. Daddy left everything to the people who truly loved him. That's what he wanted. They didn't argue. Couldn't. The truth had come wrapped not in fire, but in paper. Unshakable, legal, cold, and most of all, earned. They placed the envelope back on the coffee table and stood. I didn't walk them to the door. Claire didn't say goodbye. The only sound as they left was the slow creak of the floorboards, like the house itself had waited years for them to leave. The storm came the next morning. Not rain, not thunder, just a barrage of angry texts and voicemails. My mom's voice, high-pitched and furious. "How dare you humiliate us like that? After everything we've done for you." Dad's message, cold and clipped. "You think this is over? Just wait until the family hears what kind of daughter you are." They'd finally read every page of the documents Claire handed them, and they didn't find loopholes. They found locks, airtight, ironclad, untouchable. So they did what manipulators do when control slips. They performed. Lily called next, sighed dramatically, and said, "Look, I'm not trying to pick sides, but they are our parents. They raised us, fed us. Maybe just give them something? Anything?" I didn't yell. I didn't defend. I asked one question. "Do you remember your wedding?" She paused. "Of course." "Do you remember the $30,000 they spent on the venue? The designer dress? The private chef?" "Yeah." "And the down payment on your first home?" Silence. "I paid for my own wedding," I said. They didn't even show up. Ethan and I slept in a borrowed motel room that night. No gifts. No calls. More silence. "They raised you. They tolerated me." That was the last time Lily called. But the story didn't stay quiet. Our cousin Leah, blunt, unfiltered, texted me after seeing the scene unfold in our extended family group chat. "Your mom's trying to say you stole from the family. But I saw the documents. Claire's name is on everything. Ethan protected you. I respect that." Others reached out, slowly, carefully, some offering support, some apologizing for never seeing the favoritism. They'd always thought I was just distant. Now they understood I was surviving. Mom and Dad tried to spin it. Anna turned cold after Ethan died. "She's poisoning the child against us. She's unstable with grief." But their story unraveled just like their grip. Every move they made now reeked of desperation. They showed up at family events and were met with polite nods, not warm hugs. They told their version of things. And no one clapped. Because I never fought back. I never raised my voice. I never dragged them through the mud. I didn't have to. The truth was louder than anything they had left. And in the silence they used to ignore me with, they now sat. Alone. Isolated. Humiliated. Not because I destroyed them, but because they finally had to live in the world they built without me. We moved in early spring. The new house wasn't big. Just 2 bedrooms, a small garden, and a porch that creaked when Claire jumped too hard on it, which she did often. But it was ours. No ghosts. No shadows. No obligations. We painted Claire's room light blue. She taped her drawings to the wall. In the evenings, she'd sit by the window and read, the way Ethan used to. Sometimes I caught her whispering to the sky, like she was telling him about her day. She started thriving at school, winning art contests, raising her hand in class, laughing with that wide-open mouth she always used to cover. Her teacher once told me, "Claire has a calm confidence I rarely see in kids." I smiled. She gets it from her dad. But I was changing too. One morning, I walked into the community center and left a sticky note on the board. "Grieving isn't weakness. Come sit with someone who gets it." 5 women showed up that Friday. Then 9. Then 15. It wasn't formal, just tea, folding chairs, and honesty. We didn't compare losses. We just shared them. And slowly I stopped drowning. Late one night, I wrote out everything that had happened, from the hospital call to the envelope Claire handed over. I posted it anonymously on a women's support forum under the title, "They came for the inheritance. My daughter gave them the truth." Within hours, it went viral. Comments flooded in, women from all over the world writing, "This is my story too. You gave me courage. Your daughter's a lion, just like her mother." I didn't respond to all of them, but I read every word. And then I did something that made me cry for an entirely different reason. I opened a scholarship in Ethan's name, the Ethan Graves Foundation, for daughters who were ignored. It offered small annual grants to girls raised in toxic homes, money for books, therapy, even an escape fund. The first recipient was a teenager who left a note with her application. I never thought someone would build something for people like us. But Ethan had. He just didn't know it yet. I framed one of his old photos, the one where he's holding Claire on his shoulders, both of them laughing, faces tilted to the sun. It sits on my nightstand. That night, I picked it up, kissed the glass, and whispered, "I told you I'd protect her." The auditorium was filled with clapping hands, proud families, and stage lights that made everything glow. Claire stood at the podium in her navy blazer, reading her acceptance speech with a voice so steady and sure, it gave me chills. She was 14 now, taller than me, braver than I ever was at her age. She had just received the Young Leader in Arts and Advocacy award for organizing a mural project in the city's underserved schools, each piece representing a child who felt forgotten, unheard, unseen. My daughter turned pain into paint, just like her father turned quiet into strength. As she stepped down from the stage, her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on me. She smiled, a real, proud, healing smile. I stood and clapped with everything I had. And then, like a ghost that didn't know when to leave, my phone buzzed. Mom. The name lit up the screen, and for a second, I just stared at it. I hadn't blocked her. I didn't need to. Let her see the life she chose to walk away from. Without a second thought, I silenced the call and slid the phone into my purse. Outside, the sky was soft and golden, like it knew what the moment meant. Claire walked beside me, holding her little glass award. "Mom," she asked gently, "do you ever miss them?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to be careful with the truth. Finally, I said, "I miss the parents I wished I had, but I don't miss who they really were." She nodded. No sadness, just understanding. We stopped at the top of a small hill behind the venue. From there, we could see the mural she helped paint, bright, brave colors wrapping around an otherwise gray building. There were no portraits of villains. Just strength, just memory, just forward motion. Claire turned toward me. "Did Daddy ever think we'd end up okay?" I smiled through the lump in my throat. He knew we would. He made sure of it. She leaned into me, and together we walked toward the parking lot, the light stretching long and warm behind us. And as our footsteps faded into the glow of the evening, I thought of everything we'd lost and everything we'd built from that loss. The noise faded, the drama died, and what remained was ours. Because some people come for the inheritance, but love, that's never for sale.